All right. Well, welcome. Really excited for this conversational webinar with Ideen from Vices Fitness today and BridgeAthletic. The whole goal for today is a step-by-step process to help you start your online training business or take it to the next level. So first step, we're going to quickly introduce myself and BridgeAthletic a little bit more, why we're having this conversation. Been with BridgeAthletic since the very beginning. My name is Charlie Steffens. So I have some experience in terms of, starting this business and identifying our first customers. A little bit different than starting a training business, but hope to bring some of that to the table along with some of the data that we found from our customers on how they're doing a great job starting their business. And then we've brought in Ideen, who I'm going to introduce here in a little bit, who has real world experience doing this. But I first want to talk a little bit about the BridgeAthletic story and why we're here speaking to you all. We started in the world of sports, right? So we were in a collegiate weight room using Excel and paper sheets for the design, delivery, and tracking of training. And our whole goal was just to make that process more efficient for the coaches, more effective for the athletes. And since that point, it's really expanded. We started working in the tactical community, and then more recently also in the private training space. And that's really expanded a ton. And that's really what we want to talk about today is, the business side of training and specifically the online piece. And this isn't just if you're within a larger private training business. You could be an individual trainer looking to start your business. You could be a strength coach looking to start a side hustle or already doing so and trying to figure out, how do I do this in a more effective way? So that's what we're talking about today, how to launch a successful online training business with BridgeAthletic and Vices Fitness. It's going to be a step-by-step guide. We're going to walk through each step that you need to go through in order to get your business started. And we recognize that starting a business is hard. There's some hurdles to get over, but it may not be as hard as you think. And with some of the tips from Ideen and some of the advice from BridgeAthletic, we hope to make you more comfortable about being successful and the process by which you will need to do so. Step one, we need to identify your why. So without that kind of understanding of why you want to start that online training business, it's going to be hard to have the motivation to get through each of these steps. And we can give you some of the background on the market, like why is this a really attractive time to be starting your online training business? For us at BridgeAthletic, we've recognized that fitness applications is the fastest growing segment within the fit tech industry. Consumers are wanting more applications. After the pandemic, certainly there was a huge shift towards online that people were more comfortable with. We have more data-driven consumers. There's more wearable, there's more data, there's more people that want programs and plans based on that data. And just looking at some of the success that we've had and our customers have had, any of our clients within the private training space that have opened up an online store, they've seen greater than 130% client growth within the first 6 months. So it's working for our clients, and that's why we're so excited about bringing this to you all. So now I want to take this great opportunity to introduce our guest today, Ideen, and I'm really excited about this because we'll tell this story, but Ideen and I started working together through an introduction. He was looking for a platform, and over a Thanksgiving break when we were just launching this online store and the option to bring e-commerce to our clients, Ideen and I really worked together on kind of his process and his workflow. And so, it's been a great process working with you, Ideen, and I'm really excited to get your feedback on this for our customers and maybe interested customers. So first, if you could start just by kind of introducing yourself a little bit, and then we'd love to hear your why, why you went ahead and started your online training business. What were kind of the key drivers for you?
Sure, I'm Ideen. Vices Fitness is my brand name, but I also come from a strength coaching background. I studied strength and conditioning and exercise science at the University of Connecticut under Dr. William Kramer and a bunch of other people in his camp and all that stuff. I worked with Northeastern Hockey, the strength and conditioning program, and also UConn men's and women's soccer. It's very comfortable with the strength and conditioning side of things, but I shifted over into the luxury side of fitness after college at Equinox Sports Club in Boston. So I've been working with general population clients for around 9 years. And then me, like anyone else in the industry, when the pandemic hit, basically shut down business by upwards of 100% for some people, but about 70% for me with the conversion to virtual training. And it wasn't really like the excitement of building a new business that got me to kickstart moving online. It was really like fear and like control at first, which was essentially like I didn't have my own marketing funnel. Like I was a well-established trainer at my company, but that didn't translate to outside the company. I felt pretty fragile in that moment. I was like, I should just be a little bit more in control of like how people know me, how people find me, and as a bonus, it's a side gig to make more money. But in reality, it started from like, what happens if Equinox goes under, or what happens if I like have to move to a place that doesn't have one, or whatever. The pandemic really kicked things into gear there, but basically job security, owning my work-life balance. Anyone who's worked in the training business hourly knows like you don't get paid when you're on vacation, but not only do you not get paid, the cost of vacation adds on top of that. So vacation feels like it costs double. And I was like, look, I should at least have some degree of recurring revenue that doesn't rely on me being there. Because the math I did was like, no matter what someone paid me per hour, at some point, if I have to be there, that's not really a lot of freedom. So having some freedom is a little bit more valuable than like a certain number of income, if that makes sense.
Controlling your own destiny. You know, and I think that's such a great theme for people who want to start a business, or, you know, just something again for protection on the side, kind of like what Ideen's talking about. And you know, as I'm listening to Ideen talk, I'm thinking here, because I can't see you, Ideen. The way I've set this up is I've got the screen share, so this is almost like a mix between a podcast and a video call here. So it's interesting, but again, that controlling your own destiny seems so important. I'm excited that that's kind of a why for you. And so to our listeners, think about what that might mean in your world. Now that you've identified that why, step two is, this is an easy one, right? Sign up, go to bridgeathletic.com, start your free trial. You know, obviously this is the platform that we recommend, that Ideen is using, and that's relatively easy to go ahead and get started. But I guess maybe a little bit more detail on that, Ideen, from your perspective. I know you evaluated a ton of platforms, you looked at a bunch of options. So why did you ultimately choose BridgeAthletic to be your partner in this?
I wanted something that I could use my more like detailed background compared to the rest of the Instagram and social media market, but bring it to general population. And like I used a couple apps like Trainerize, True Coach, a couple of things here that I've tried using Sheets, but none of them like make it easy for you to differentiate that, oh, I'm a strength coach. Like I have like a little bit more of a detailed and nuanced background than just every other trainer. And me not being like the shredded men's health cover guy, like I kind of have to leverage my education a little bit more than like just workout videos of my body, for example. And I found Bridge through a coworker who used to work with the Celtics, and he was like, hey, you should talk to these guys. Met with Charlie there. And I didn't know going to the call that they have obviously a very technical and easy to use platform. But one of the biggest, most exciting things for me, my like brain almost lit up when I heard this, was that they have a weight recommendation feature. And it doesn't sound like over the top of what a feature that is, but if you think about and break down what clients expect from you as a trainer or strength coach, one of the elements you provide, because you can't scale every element, but one element is your expertise on like what's a warm-up set, what's a like working set, how to ramp up for a beginner and intermediate and advanced, like the difference between a 10 rep set of someone who's well trained versus someone who's brand new. How do you scale that up without being there? And I immediately realized with the weight recommendation feature and the machine learning component, I could differentiate a beginner, intermediate, and advanced program with the same movements by just adjusting the intensity, for example. Or instead of only writing 3x10, I could be like, look, it's 3x10, except 10 is a warm up, and then the two other 10s or are ramp up sets. Or I could write like a more low rep set for like strength or power, but use the weight recommendation feature to guide people on like, this is a power exercise, so the weights are lower, you want to move a little bit faster. Or while this rep count is low, it's still ramping you up to your peak weight, so it's only 80% effort. And those are all things I can pre-program ahead of time. And for me, immediately, I was like, compared to everyone I know in the space on the general pop side, they don't have that piece. And they're also charging a lot more for not having that piece, which I thought was crazy. So immediately I was like, I mean, there's a lot of other things I love about Bridge, but that to me was like this is huge. As a strength coach, I can be both technical and simple and scale up a piece of what I do in person in a way that isn't at least available, at least from the people I know on social media. They don't have that kind of feature on any of their platforms. But to add to the machine learning, if you've ever used like any of those platforms, True Coach, Equinox has its own on the back end. We have a new one on the back end. Google Sheets. I'm trying to think about all the ones I've used. The efficiency is pretty bad in terms of like writing out your plans. It takes a lot longer. The other thing I really liked about Bridge was like it just looked like it was made by someone who's done a lot of programming, where they have like a feature or a tab that's like you can view your week, let's say Sunday through Saturday horizontally, so you can plan out your aerobic days, your anaerobic days, and like you can see the exercises you picked all side by side. But then my favorite feature is you toggle from that into a thing called week by week mode. So now I can look at Monday, but over the course of 4 weeks, all horizontally, so I can build out the progressions horizontally. And my God, it's such a simple feature, but a toggle there, such a useful feature for anyone who likes to build out, 4 weeks at a time or 8 weeks at a time. So those are the main things that really sold me on Bridge, but they kept adding features like copy and pasting and saving templates that make it so much faster to use than any of the other platforms I still unfortunately have to cycle through.
Yeah, and I've got to say, shout out to our product team that makes our lives easier at the company, making these incredible features. And like you said, Ideen, like sitting down with coaches, whether they be on our staff or externally, our customers, over, in the early days, years and years of perfecting some of these products that Ideen's talking about. But we're releasing new features and capabilities based on feedback, very, very frequently. And so that makes our job a lot easier. Shout out to the Boston Celtics that Ideen mentioned with the reference to him, NBA champions this year. So that's awesome. And then, just following up, I think, Ideen, you do, and I commend you on this, like an incredible job of using these capabilities and matching them to your target customer and how they might use them. Sure, they might have been crafted in the NBA or within a collegiate weight room, but how can that be leveraged in your space to be more effective with your customers, whether that's saving time, whether that's bringing them more value, and then also marketing that. Like if you go to Ideen's website, and you'll find out how to follow him and whatnot, and maybe see some examples. But he's touting how he's leveraging the machine learning piece to improve his client experience, and that's really cool. Like you've got to also sell that a little bit, right? And how are you using the product? But that's not something you have to build yourself. We are your partner in this, and you can absolutely leverage that and speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, all right, you understood your why. You've signed up to the platform. You've got a reason why you want to use Bridge as your platform. Now it's time to put those products together, and you're going to see here that Ideen has a lot of feedback here. We from Bridge have a lot of feedback here on how to build your program. Upload those exercises and videos if that's something that you want to do. And one of the most important pieces here is to, try to be specific if you can in the beginning. Like, who's your target customer? Who's your target demo? What are the programs or the first program or first 2 or 3 programs that are going to match the needs of that initial customer? And then remember that Bridge has a library for you, 3,000 exercises, videos, images, cues. We have workouts. Like, you don't necessarily have to put all this in yourself. You'll see that Ideen has done a lot of that work, and that's great. But find that balance of speed to market and then what you want to do yourself. But I guess kind of moving on to your experience, Ideen, and thinking back to our early days chatting with each other, like what was that initial customer? Who did they look like? What was your first program, and what was just the process that you had to go through to get your videos in there, get your first program, and how's that developed now? Like, what have you learned and made more efficient about that process?
Definitely not the most fun part in terms of uploading videos, but it really is not as bad or as tedious as like I can make it sound. I know it can make it sound. In general, I think what switched me over, or maybe start doing some social media stuff, is like, especially coming from a strength coach background. So any of you strength coaches who watch this, it's funny when you go on social media and see how much like dumb stuff general pop worries about because of what these like kind of charlatans of social media make them worry about, especially when you know like how to work with athletes in a higher level of training. You're like, why are these people following this stuff or worried about any of this stuff? It doesn't really matter. And I have a lot of friends who are former athletes, so there wasn't really someone providing both content and like realistic advice to them. It's like, like my group of friends is late 20s to early 30s, people who all work hard throughout the week, but they like to get after it on the weekends and have some fun. And like, they're used to working out 2 hours a day as college athletes, but you can't really do that anymore. So someone that like provides them more efficient solutions was my general view. The other thing I didn't know ahead of time, and this probably apply to anyone who switches from doing or tries to expand from in-person to online, is your target demo is going to be a lot like your in-person people, because your daily content and things you think about are going to be a lot like that. The way you communicate, the stuff you're kind of focused on day to day will always be around that. So my online demo is a little bit more female skewed than my in-person, but like if I had to pinpoint my average in-person client, it's like male or female, mid to late 30s, slightly more female than male, and on online it's just a little bit more extreme on that note. I think it's like a little, like probably 60-70% female, mid to late 30s on average, but with some outliers outside. You just don't really know until you actually start, though. That's what I would say. It's like I wouldn't overthink the initial process, like come up with an idea of who your target is, but really just get something out there. Then you'll find out who your real target is much faster once you have stuff out there. In terms of getting the videos on there, there are definitely less efficient ways to do it and more efficient ways. I would say, like, if I were going to go in hindsight, if I worked in a strength and conditioning facility, I probably wouldn't even worry about my own videos on there yet. I would actually just start having like on programs on Bridge for some of my athletes as is, write them out on there, and you already have products, and you start to like sell those products to people who you can't see in person. That way you can get the feedback you need to start developing your first product. If you're someone who wants to expand to like a different brand like I have, then you want to create some degree of branding around it, then I would certainly recommend filming and filming a widescreen. Don't make the mistake I did. I filmed in a vertical screen at first, and I had to refilm everything. In terms of doing that really efficiently, the best way, in my opinion, I think you guys all break down movement patterns the same way I would, which is like bilateral and unilateral movements, lower body pushes and pulls, upper body pushes and pulls, vertical, horizontal. I basically create a spreadsheet with all the movements that I think most people should have. And then also divide those movements into pieces of equipment, so dumbbell, barbell, cable, whatever it was, so that I could have the most efficient film time. So I'm not moving from a cable to a dumbbell. And if I needed just free space in the dumbbell, I could film 10 of those in a row. Probably took me a combined total of like 4 booked hours in a studio to film all the exercises, around 300 or 400 of them, or 450 of them. Which is not that bad. I think most of it was actually done in an hour. Like I got all the bulk base exercises for 3 levels of programming done in an hour. And then the more tedious part is trimming them down, like removing the sound from them, making sure they're formatted and uploading them. But again, it's another like full day thing you'll be done. The part that's annoying about it is it's a full day of pressing the same 4 buttons on like your mouse pad. That part's annoying. But the way I looked at it was like, had I not made the mistake the first time of filming vertically, I just went from wide, you do that over the course of a weekend, you're basically done in a weekend, and then that exercise library is there for any time you need to write a new plan. When I wrote a new plan yesterday. It took me about 30 minutes to write a brand new plan, but all the exercises are done, and that brand new plan can be creating revenue for me for the next 2, 3, 4 years. I don't have to touch it again. So it's a lot of upfront work, but that's how you create scalable recurring revenue, is you do a lot of upfront work and then you get the dividends on it at the end.
Yeah, and this is that period where, again, I met Ideen. We got together over this kind of Thanksgiving break when we were launching this product, and to me, it seemed like this got done super quickly from my perspective, Ideen. I know you were working so much in the background, but the fact that you came out initially like with all your own videos and with like a number of different program options was super impressive. And now it seems like even going through that a second time, you may have even pared that down a little bit, started a little bit more simpler, and then expanded from there. But we've all got to learn our lessons going out, and that's going to happen, right? But so you got to be kind of ready for that. But it sounds like now it's the speed to market for you, now that you have all your stuff in there, the program well, like 30 minutes. I mean, that's super impressive.
It gets easier and easier, but an additional note for strength coaches out there, especially if you train general pop, I think it's just something you get excited about when you start using Bridge or a platform like this. I was getting super complicated with like the percentage difficulty I want them to hit and all this stuff. And then after a year of it, I'm like, the majority of at least accessory exercises could have pretty similar rep schemes and percent difficulties where you just kind of make sure it's easy. And for the user, it probably makes more sense if they're doing a superset where the exercise reps for each exercise are the same, not different. And so like balancing what's actually useful for the customer and beneficial, but also like easy to follow with your like desire to be technical is something I wish I did a little bit better with my first batch of programs, just because it's significantly less time consuming while also being better for the client anyways.
Yeah, and you'll see that the tips from the BridgeAthletic side, what we're hearing from other customers, kind of the data that we're seeing, the successful online stores, to Ideen's point, like they do tend to have a well-defined target audience or well-defined products. So I think something to be wary of is be careful launching initially with this huge menu of a bunch of different options. You might overwhelm your clients when they get to your online store page with too many options. But two, it's a lot for you to manage, and it's hard for you to develop and learn. You know, there's these kind of philosophies on lean startups and kind of working iteratively and starting simple, and then based on the feedback you're getting from your clientele, expanding from there. And so if you may not know exactly, but if you have a hypothesis like Ideen did, hey, here's people I already work with, or here's some of my friend groups and I know what their challenges are. Okay, 20 to 30s, maybe former athletes, or really enthusiastic about their training. They like to have fun on the weekends. Okay, I've got an idea that I can work off of. Build one product for that group, launch it, and then start to get feedback and develop. And that will maybe alleviate some of the extra work you need to do to build out all those programs. I've seen a lot of coaches say, hey, I want a page with every sport and every, whatever, this big menu. And that's great. But maybe try to start with your first program that you have a ton of experience in. If you used to be a high level baseball athlete or coach, like maybe start there and then expand to the other sports, right? So think about what you're known for. Where do you have that most experience as a coach? Start there, create that feedback loop. So then, as demand comes in and says, hey, actually, my friend here that plays basketball he's been working out with me on and wants to do a basketball program. Could you build that for me, right? And so then you expand for there. And then find that right balance between speed to market and your own content. So, maybe if you don't feel like you have to film 400 videos, you're not ready for that, maybe use the bridge content to start, and then you have faster speed to market, and then start adding content as you need it. So those are some of the tips from our end. But continue to move ahead, again, step-by-step process. You've got your programs, right? You've built those programs. Now you can leverage our e-commerce functionality to build your store. And so this is where you're going to link your Stripe account for payments. You're going to decide, is your product something that's one time, a 12-week or 20-week program you're going to pay for it once, or recurring? Is it a monthly recurring subscription? What images, descriptions do you need to put alongside your product on our website on your website to be able to sell that product? And then, social media links and whatnot. So Ideen, I know this is something that you've grown a lot in. You certainly have established a brand. You do monthly subscriptions. So can you talk to us a little bit about maybe your initial thoughts on how you went to market and what was needed there with the online store, and then how that's kind of developed, and specifically maybe talking about the branding, the monthly subscriptions, and maybe some of the pricing that you've come up with?
Yes, we talked at Thanksgiving. It was, I think, 2021 maybe. I was up and running for a soft launch a week later with like 3 levels of programming: beginner, intermediate, advanced. After the first 4 weeks, based on which one sold the most, after a conversation with one of my mentors and friends, he was like, you need a landing page that's more unilateralism, like just your most popular product, that should be a landing page with a link to the full store. The moment I made that switch January of 22, where my intermediate plan was like my main landing page, it's still there on my own personal website, the sales in the funnel was a lot smoother, a lot better, because it's less overwhelming for people. And the people who want to seek out beginner or advanced or any of my other programs can still find them. It's a bit of a weird mental hurdle to get over, to be like, well, I want there to be options, but I also want to convert and make it more simple for clients. So a 4-week test run to find out what's going to be your best seller, and then funneling to that and setting up a link to the store is probably a good method for everyone. In terms of the monthly subscriptions, it's a bit of a behavior, I don't want to say trick, but hack, I guess. One being your upfront cost, it can be lower. So if you want to do $80 for a 10-week plan, okay, you could make a subscription and divide that over 10 weeks instead. And now all of a sudden the initial hurdle is lower. But second, people tend to use products that are subscription-based better. It's like one of my coaching platforms as well. We initially took upfront payment for people committing for 6 months, and we stopped doing that because, think about it yourself. If you paid for something 6 months ago, are you still gonna try as much as you would if you have to pay for it again every single month? So there is a bit of a behavior component in terms of being able to pay monthly. But I also want people to be like, this isn't just a PDF plan. If you want to be one of those people who goes to the gym and you can shut your brain off, I will have programs for you. I'll have more than there are in the store You'll always be there. And it was a flat rate access fee, not just the cost of one program. So instead of being like $19 a month for each program, you pick the one you want, but you just email me and say, I want advanced, I want like a splits program or whatever, and I just add them to your account with no additional cost. So I want to create more of like a community and ecosystem that like once you're in, you just pay your subscription, but you just let me know, we chat, we just add programs here and there whenever you need.
Yeah, and I think that's such a helpful way to describe it. And it's almost like it's a service, right? You're signing on to my service, and I'll help you. Whatever program you're ready for or which one you want next, let me know. But all those points I think make a lot of sense. And I think we've seen that in terms of the data that we're seeing from online stores. And I'm going to get to that on the next page. But just to also give some other tips around building your online store. If you don't have a brand yet, you don't have content yet. Same with your exercise videos. You don't have to have all that stuff yourself. BridgeAthletic has template content, videos, media for you to build your BridgeAthletic online store more seamlessly. And in fact, almost half of our online products that are out there in the market with our customers use template content. A lot of that template content is rich media. And whether you're using the template content or your own rich media, this works. Put videos, put media in your site, especially ones that show the mobile app. People like to see what they're buying, and the mobile app is the best kind of visual of that. The pages with rich media have higher views and purchases than not. I think be careful with high priced items. Ideen, I know you have a kind of a personalized version of what you do, but that's the justification. So that's great. I'm not saying don't do that, but you're going to see lower conversion with higher priced items. And if you don't have justification there, that conversion is going to be even less. So make sure they know it's a personalized version. They know, maybe if you're meeting with them on the side or doing any other additional services, put that on the online store page, on the product page, so they know. Just a little psychological trick, consider those non-whole numbers. Buyers do tend to get a little bit wary when they see a $20 versus a $19 for whatever reason. So Ideen's doing a great job with this. There are free product options as well. So, if you're having trouble kind of generating those leads or interest and you want to give a free product to be able to, give a little bit of taste of what you do, you can do that on Bridge. You don't have to have a price associated with it. And then you can then convert those free users into paid users. I mentioned already that the media of the mobile app performs very, very well. We have template content of the mobile app, so I would suggest putting that in, or like Ideen's done, get some images of your own version of the Bridge app. Now, back to Ideen's point on the monthly subscription. Subscriptions offer a higher lifetime value, so it's more likely you're going to keep those customers for a longer period of time and ultimately earn more revenue on subscriptions. And they do tend to have more engagement. So, with that subscription, the clients are engaging more with the product than necessarily, like Ideen said, they bought something 6 months ago or a year ago. So I think if in doubt, lean on the subscription as an option for your payment, at least to start. But one, I think, exception is if you know that you have a seasonal product or there's a specific population that you're going after and a buying period. So for instance, you have a 16-week or 20-week baseball off-season plan. Okay, baseball athletes, it's in the off-season, there's a certain period of time. Great, that's a great opportunity for a one-time payment. But otherwise, think about the strategy that Ideen spoke through in terms of setting up a service where you're moving people to different programs or different options of yours, and you might see better engagement and then ultimately better business results with that.
Yeah, I have one note of there too that I would probably maybe adjust somehow. Is I went with what one of my clients described as the Greek diner method with pricing, and the Greek diner method, in his words, is provide bigger portions than everyone on the street for a lower price. Turns out that works well for food, but with programming, like there's a general connection between price and quality for everyone. And I was like, I'm going to provide more than everyone I'm seeing on social media, but for a lower price when you break it down. It's hard to like convince someone that's true when it's lower, but I still don't feel comfortable increasing my price point because the hosting on Bridge is not expensive. You do pay monthly for Bridge, which is cool because it's dynamic based on how many users you have, and it automatically adjusts, which is great. And that's another reason to kind of justify a service. Like imagine you got 10 sales 1 month, but you don't get any sales for the next year and a half. You're still paying for those 10 people for that year and a half. So monthly does make sense to some degree. But yeah, I went with, if you're going to do a really high level product, you shouldn't overprice it. But one thing that I wish I knew a little bit better was that like people tend to look at price as a point of value. You can either provide something for a lower price or you can provide something that's better. You probably can't do both and convince everyone pretty easily. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think one other point with your, the personalized product and that higher price product that you mentioned, Ideen, is, you may earn that from one of your existing clients that's on your lower price product. And that's great because now they know your value and maybe they're looking for something more. So that could be a step in the process where you may not start right away with a higher priced option, but maybe you decide you want to add that later on. And, ultimately have that kind of set up.
Yeah, I went lower, and then like this is the higher price coaching one's actually my middle product compared to in-person coaching, and that was the last product I launched. Having the two polar ends helped like define what's in the middle for me. But I've also had clients move through all three, like in-person to middle to down and back and forth. So I think every trainer should have three options to a degree, and each one has less of a touch point for you. But I would say that doing the lower price point gives you better guidance for what you could do for higher.
Yeah, and I think that brings up another great point because people ask like, how do I come up with pricing? And just in terms of on average, like we typically see things on the lower end from like the $10 to $30 a month range. And then, with the more, either hybrid or personalized or kind of high end, if you will, online training, you're looking the $150 to $300 range, maybe over a longer period of time, but maybe not. It might just be monthly if you're giving enough of that attention. And I think thinking about what your in-person fees are, right? And how much time it's going to take you to be managing those more personalized online clients versus the time it takes you to manage someone who's, a little bit, you're going to be less involved with. It's a more scalable product. You can charge less. It's a great way for you to think about and just kind of protect yourself a little bit from a time standpoint. And then like Ideen was talking about, like you do have to think about the marketplace. Like what are competitive products doing? Like make sure that you're going to have a competitive price point. There's no right or wrong answer for where your price should be, but it should match your value, and your customers should feel like they're getting more value than what they're paying for, because then they're going to keep coming back, they're going to keep renewing, they're going to refer you to others. So be considerate of that, but also recognize your time. Like how much time is it going to take you to be managing these products? And the beauty of Bridge is, especially for the low touch stuff, it's not going to take you that much time. So you can be really competitive with your pricing as you get up into more of the hybrid or personalized approach. Yeah, you're going to make sure you want to be covered there. Okay, all right, so we've talked a lot now. We're ready to launch and market the products, right? We've got to spread the word. Just putting it up online on the Bridge store, yes, we're going to help you show up in search, and you're going to be on Google, and you're going to have a website, great. But until you start sharing that with people through word of mouth, through a website, through social media, emailing, maybe even advertising, you're not going to be driving as much of those conversions. So Ideen, you've done a great job with this. Would love to hear from you, like from the initial onset to where you are now, how did you eventually reach those target customers, and what did you learn over time, and kind of what has your process been?
Yeah, social media is an interesting one. I didn't really know who my target customer would be until you go through the process. Like, I think when someone looks at someone's page grow over a couple of years, it feels like it's either an overnight success or just gradual and linear. And it's kind of neither. Like, if you look at how I got to the following I have, there's like 3 to 5 dates where someone big reposted me out of nowhere, and that just like doubled my following overnight. Like, one of those pages was a female scientist down in Georgia who got like famous during the pandemic for the way she was breaking down COVID science. And so I got a huge chunk of my following from her, which was mostly female science oriented people. And I was like, oh, this is the best kind of like client base you could ever have. So it's a little unpredictable, but in terms of messaging, like especially coming from the strength coach side, there's a lot of room in the social media market for strength coaches, I think. I think coming from that background, there's a lot of like almost uncertainty or ego in our way because it feels below like our intelligence level to like post on social media, but some strength coaches do a great job. And in general, especially if you want to convert what you know to general population, there's a huge gap in that market. Really, social media is like too saturated with people who are on the edge of undereducated on the subject they're talking about. So I do think there's a lot you can work with there. And until you start posting, you won't really know who your customer base is. Like I had one regret through each step of this process. it's kind of overthinking the steps before executing X. So for the first step, it was like, I took too long to post my website, which then made me take too long to realize that like people aren't doing written content anymore unless you already are a known name. So I had to switch to video content, which I took too long to do because I didn't want to speak on camera and I didn't think that was a skill I could learn. Had I done all those things faster from the start, it would have been great. And I didn't, once I started doing well there, I still didn't launch on Bridge till 10 months later. Had I already had Bridge set up, a couple of my early viral videos on TikTok probably would have led to some like really good recurring customers and high numbers, and I just didn't have a product available. So I really think like kind of the simple answer you hear from a lot of business people is just like, just start, and everything else will figure it out. Like put yourself out there, you're more likely to continue to post and advertise once you've done that first one, like almost breaking the seal. So break the seal, start doing some degree of advertising what you're doing, and then you'll start to adjust and develop based on feedback you get, what does well and what doesn't. But I would definitely caution not to take too much time overthinking like your brand development, like what your website looks like what everything looks like. The way social media works now, especially compared to back then, is like those things do not matter. What your grid looks like doesn't matter. Your website at best is going to be just an information funnel for your products, but it does not have to rank well on like Google or anything like that right off the start. It doesn't have to look absolutely stunning or have all these features, because most of your traffic, if you're going to go to online, is going to come through social media, especially Instagram. And it does not have to be this curated, beautiful feed anymore. It's more about like being raw and authentic. So just don't overthink it, but then have a very, very constructively self-critical lens on your content. Like you got to look back at yourself, like, what am I not doing that other people that I admire are doing, and how can I get better at it? Because that's the mistake I see most often with trainers I know who try and switch into the spaces. They'll post some videos, they don't do well, so they either stop or they keep posting without like analyzing why their videos didn't do well and not adjusting what they do. Those are things I'm happy to help people with in general, but say just like don't be shy to get your feet wet. You learn a lot more once the feet are wet than by standing on the sideline.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme I'm sensing with you, Ideen, of just, you wishing, hey, I would have done this a bit earlier and then like learned from it earlier, or like you said, getting your feet wet, taking the plunge. Like I think the pursuit of that perfection and waiting until it's perfect, it's going to really stunt your growth opportunities because you're not learning, you're not getting better. So I think that's huge. And I guess for us to just add a little bit of data on top, like in terms of the conversions that we see, you can tell like almost 75% are coming from some form of social media. Linktree is basically that, link that you're getting from Instagram or wherever. So social media is going to be your friend here. Instagram is a great one because it's visual. People like to see the app and stuff like that, or see the workouts, so you can leverage that. One thing I do want to say here, kind of piggybacking off Ideen, is you don't have to be a social media expert to start building a social media presence. And you can follow kind of like this build by partner framework, where maybe building in this scenario is you learning and building and trying and getting better and better. Maybe talking to someone like Ideen about, how you could do this yourself. Think about buying as maybe you could hire someone or have someone help you out, to help you build this presence, someone who is an expert. And if you don't have access to, funds to hire someone, think about maybe partnering. Do you have, an athlete or another coach or someone in nutrition or equipment or, some other space, someone who has a following that Ideen saw help with? You could reach out to them, especially if you know them well, to say, hey, I don't really have this social media presence, but I do want to launch this business, and I think you could be a great affiliate for me. Would you, want to join me in helping to promote my products? And then maybe you can, give them a referral, cut. And so that can also be an option for you to grow your presence. And then remember here, the videos, the media, that stuff performs well on YouTube. It performs well on other social media applications. It performs well on the Bridge product pages. So keep that stuff in mind as well. All right, we're getting close to the end here. We're starting to wrap this up. You're selling products, right? You've got customers now. This is probably the most important piece, and we've already hit on it a few times, but make sure you create a feedback loop. And that could be someone you just reaching out and asking for feedback. It could be reviews. Remember that Bridge has usage reports. You can know which programs and workouts are getting the most engagement from your clients. We have conversion reports. you can know which of your product pages are getting the most views and then ultimately conversions, and seeing how that looks. So we'll talk about how we can leverage that. But Ideen, I'm interested, I think you already spoke to almost an example, but if you have even one example of a time where you got some feedback from a customer and that helped you adjust your product or your strategy to help you get better.
Yeah, I think parsing through, especially your general pop, like what's value feedback, and what's like, oh no, this is feedback I expect. One thing I knew with Bridge is that like for true beginners, it might be like an interface that's I won't say complex for them, but like it might not speak to them. So every now and then, like some of the feedback I got was like, oh, like, this doesn't really work with me, but it was very minor. And those kind of clients were things that would like, they would respond really well to like a blank white page that just said like do 12 reps, basically the old PDF style. And being able to not like change my product based on that feedback because it was the minority was one step in terms of feedback. Like this is not my target customer. I knew that I would have like 8% of purchasers who feel this way. I'll just refund them. It's not built for everyone. That's one layer of feedback. The second is like remember who your target customer is, especially if you are that target customer. In a way, I was that target customer and I was doing some of my programs and they were just taking long for someone who wants to be more focused around like work and building business and doing social stuff on the weekend than working out like an athlete the way I used to. So I was like, what, these workouts, especially for my target demo, just need to be a little bit shorter. I wrote them really thoroughly, and I had gotten some feedback here and there about them being long, but I never really thought about it beyond that until I started doing them myself. And I'm like, realistically, most people need to be working out 30 to 45 minutes. Longer than that's unrealistic unless it's their hobby or their job. So between a combo of feedback and me actually doing the programs myself, I was like, okay, let me shift to these shorter versions, which were actually like simplified in a way, but on a note, like it was like I'm almost using more expertise to eliminate some things that had previously showed expertise. So a lot of my circuits had, lower body, upper body, a mobility exercise, and a core exercise. So upwards of 4 exercises in the circuit because I wanted to be thorough for my clients. But 4 exercises in a circuit's a lot, especially in a busy gym. Cool downs. Most adults might not need that or don't have the time for it. And there's something about like, yes, they can skip it if they want to, but once it's in the app, they want to be able to check everything off. So in reality, like it took a deeper level of expertise to like parse things down, shorten it based on what they really need, and give them something that they're going to enjoy realistically completing on a regular basis. So using that feedback as well as testing out the products yourself was like huge for making a more, I guess, realistic product for my customer base.
Yeah, we call that eating your own dog food.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like really important too. And even if you're just starting with Bridge, like we recommend that for any of our clients, whether they're in the sports world, the tactical world, or they're on the business side. Like if you're starting a trial with Bridge, send a workout to yourself, do it yourself. Not only is it going to help you learn and evaluate our product, but you're just going to be a better coach at coaching people using this app. But I think it goes hand in hand with also when you launch a product online, like do the workouts, like what's your experience with it? And maybe you're not your target demo and that's okay, but then combining that with the feedback you're getting from your clients is huge. And I think, oops, I just accidentally fast forwarded there. One thing that I think we have such a big kind of focus on in our business, and I think it applies here as well based on your feedback, Ideen, so I wanted to hit on it. Lean into the feedback, especially with like a technology product where we're releasing new features. We want to, sometimes it can be hard to take criticism or hear that this isn't working or this isn't great for me, but it's going to happen. So lean into it and use that as free advice. Consider that free consulting. Say thank you. Some people are nicer than others when they give feedback, but don't take it personal. Use it as an opportunity to improve your product, and they're potentially going to help you make money. So lean into that, and then you can use the data. So we have reports on compliance with the programs. Check that out. Like which of your products and your programs are getting better compliance from your athletes or clients? Okay, the ones that are getting great compliance, what do you think that might be? Or go ask them for feedback. The ones that aren't, what do you think that might be? And then, make sure you use that to improve your programs you're building moving forward. Same with the product pages. So using our online store, you're gonna be able to put out different product pages. Which ones have more views and conversions? Ask yourself why, and then make those adjustments for future pages. And if you're doing that consistently, you are going to have a successful business. That's what it's all about, is getting better. And this goes in line with the theme of don't wait for perfection to start get that feedback, and then start making those improvements, and you'll see your business grow. So we've come to the end of the presentation. Hopefully we moved quick enough. Hopefully you feel like now you have a step-by-step process for launching your business with some cool tips. But this isn't the end of the road. So Ideen, if you have any final parting advice, and then how can some of our listeners, watchers, reach you? I put your Instagram up there, but there might be other ways.
Yeah, I think final parting advice is the one I touched on, which is like, if I could do anything all over again, it's just start and have a product up there sooner. You'll adapt. It's kind of the same idea with social media. Once you put yourself out there, like, you're more likely to keep doing it. Same idea with the product. Once you have a product up there, you'll get this immediate dopamine switch in your brain once you get one sale. And then when you get one sale and you see that first hook, you're like, oh my God. You reach out to the person, you're like, hey, like, thank you for doing all this. You get super excited, and has this positive feedback loop that like makes you do it better. So get out there sooner instead of trying to like perfect everything the way I did, which fails anyways, because you're never going to get it right by doing all that stuff ahead of time. The second piece is like, just, there wasn't a blueprint for going from like the strength coach side to general pop and like building an online product when I did it. There still isn't, as far as I know. And I didn't really have, like, the people I asked for different industries, tangential, nothing that like really encompassed this side of things. So feel free to like reach out. It's kind of like you help one person, they help you somehow industry. So like if you guys grow on social media, we start doing collaboration opportunities. So in reality, like, it does benefit me to help you guys as long as you guys succeed. So I'm not being facetious when I say, like, feel free to reach out. I am happy to help and give you genuine advice, because if it works, we can work together, and that benefits both of us anyways. So definitely don't hesitate to like jump into things. Remember, part of your expertise is knowing when to limit your expertise in terms of your product and like what applies to your clients. You don't have to show off your intelligence with your programming. Like, a very, very smart and like well-experienced trainer knows how to simplify things for people. Yeah, reach out. Instagram's probably the best way. I don't answer DMs very frequently because they just add up, but we'll either chat in person in Baltimore, or my email is just ideen@vicesfitness.com. I clear my email a lot more than I do my DMs.
All right, so hit Ideen up at his email. And I definitely have experience that helped me help you with Ideen since I've met him, and I thank you for that, Ideen. It's been a really cool relationship we've developed, and the one with BridgeAthletic and Vices Fitness. This was really cool to do this. Ideen mentioned something as well. He will be joining us at the 2024 NSCA National Convention in Baltimore. He's going to be at our booth, at our social event. So for those of you watching this ahead of time, during, maybe some of you after, you might have missed the boat on that, but come learn, come have fun, come meet Ideen and our team. And we'd love to work with you on starting your business and help become a partner. And so that's why you see that code there, NSCA 24. If you're not using Bridge yet, you can use that to get in and start using us and start this process. And I think, Ideen, that's a wrap.
Awesome.
All right, thanks so much.
Take care.